Hello, everyone. It's Aubrey Bursch with Easy School Marketing, and I am so excited to be here with you today because we have a hot topic that everyone's talking about right now. It's late in July right now, and let me just tell you the scenario. We have public schools making decisions about what they're doing in the fall, and we have public school parents not necessarily liking the decisions that our public schools are making. Therefore, they're thinking of the alternatives, and what comes to mind? Private schools. So Trevor from TruthTree Consulting is here today, and we are going to dive into this topic, which I know you're going to love, so stick around. And really, there's some great gold nuggets in here, so tune in. Now, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm with Easy School Marketing, and what we do is help schools identify and implement strategies that help increase enrollment, retention, and revenue. And Trevor, I would like you to introduce yourself and tell our fans more about what's going on with you.
Hey, Aubrey, thanks so much for having me. My name is Trevor Waddington. I'm the principal at TruthTree Consulting. We work with independent schools and summer camps on market research and digital marketing, so SEO, SEM, and SMM. And what we like to help schools do is really think above board and help them not manage enrollment, but really design enrollment through digital strategies. I'm a former teacher, social studies teacher, independent school administrator for more than 2 decades, or I should say spanning over 2 decades, doing admissions, marketing, communications, and enrollment management. And I'm excited to be on with you, Aubrey.
Oh, thanks so much, Trevor. Now, for those of you who are just tuning in, let me just tell you, it is an informal conversation between colleagues. Trevor has his drink, and so do I. Mine's coffee. Yep. What's yours?
I like it's called Mio. It's that it's a water enhancer, so it's not.
So it's healthy for you, sort of?
Probably not. There's a lot of chemicals in it, but it does have caffeine. I'm not a coffee drinker, so this is essentially my morning, afternoon, and night coffee in my Michigan cup.
Awesome. So we are both partaking in our coffee-ish beverages. So, Trevor, tell me, we've set the stage for what's happening right now. So what are you seeing on your end? Like what are you noticing, and what can you tell us about, how these independent schools can really take advantage of the situation in front of them?
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, when is this going to go to air? Because even if it's like 20 minutes from now, you may have to dub over what I'm going to answer, because it's changing from day to day, minute to minute almost. Nationwide, what we've really been seeing, and anybody can go on to googletrends.com or just Google Trends and type in private school or independent school or preschool to see that, I mean, we are at a 5-year high and a 20-year almost record for this time of year for presumably parents searching for private schools. The reason they're doing that, it really depends on the state. And one of the nice things about Google Trends is you can see search volume by state. We're both in the Washington, D.C. area. So we know all too well that many of the counties and in other places it's done by district or done by state have announced when school is starting, how it's going to look. Is it going to be distance learning? Is it going to be in person? If it is in person, what precautions are in place? Can you do a hybrid model? Now the term pods is becoming super popular. So it's really just what I'm seeing is parents are just disillusioned with how things were left off, especially if they were in public school in the spring. I have daughters that one of them was in public elementary school. The other one was a little too young. Now, I get it. I mean, the public schools, they had a hard time kind of hitting the ground running, just the sheer number and what was expected of teachers and being able to equip all the students with the right technology for them to be able to participate. Independent schools, they did a great job, most of them pivoting to distance learning, getting kids set up pretty much right away. So I think that's going to carry over. I think, these parents right now, they are looking very hard at private independent schools. I know many that were under-enrolled are now getting closer to being fully enrolled. And one of what we have done at TruthTree, almost on a day-to-day basis, I mean, we're almost like AccuWeather forecasters, but just for what parents are wanting in how they have been searching, what they've been looking for, and helping our schools position themselves digitally to essentially say, hey, we've got room. Here's what it's going to look like. If this appeals to you and we have room in that grade, give us a call or shoot us an email.
That's fantastic, Trevor. And I think on our side, we're seeing the same thing. We're more in the strategy part of it, but we're seeing people in schools who are taking that proactive action really start filling up their admissions. Their scheduling is like 2 weeks out into like back-to-back interviews with interested parents from the public school sector. So we're definitely seeing that, especially here. And I think this is important for those other people in the country right now who haven't had those decisions yet. This is good for them to know. Now, have you noticed, like, as you're going through this and working through with schools or actually observing, what other schools are doing, are you finding some things, like some mistakes, some common mistakes that people are making when they're thinking, oh, we need more people, so we're going to do this? Or have you found, on the other hand, something that's really effective in terms of grabbing people's attention and what our public school families truly want to hear and see?
Well, I think so. A couple things to unpack there. One thing is, and we've been cautious with our school partners to make promises. We are definitely going to be open 5 days a week. We have multiple school partners in California, and they were all ready to they had all plans in place to have some sort of in-person education. And then the state said, sorry, all schools are going to be virtual until a certain date. So they had to quickly pivot from that, obviously feed that information to us so we could readjust the ads or essentially turn them off before we readjusted them. Public school parents they're not as savvy in how to search for private schools or exactly what they're looking for because they've never done it before. There's always a first time for everybody, but I think parents that are more savvy into what they're looking for and frankly what they want in a school, they know how to kind of navigate that a little bit easier. One thing I'm definitely positioning, and our team is positioning our schools to do when it comes to Google ads, for example, is if you Google, private school near me, wherever you happen to be right now, you're going to see between 2 and 4 ads at the top of the page. We like our school partners ads really to stand out there. And what we typically would do is not lead with the school name. So I always use TruthTree Academy as sort of our demo school name. But it may be, the best place for your kid to be might be the lead headline and then move it into the school name. But right now, parents they're frantic. They're just looking for school, academy, something that's going to, this is a school's website. I want to click here. We don't want there to be any mistaking that. The other piece that we are doing, which is we don't always do, is making sure people know exactly where the school that they are looking for is. So, for example, and I was just running this demo the other day for a potential school partner, and I typed in private school Los Angeles. Now, again, I'm in the Washington D.C. area, and 3 of the 4 ads were for Washington D.C. area schools. One of them was a Los Angeles-based school. None of them had their location in there, and if I didn't know better, I would click on it and probably get very confused because this doesn't look like a Los Angeles or that area. So those are a couple of the things that we're seeing. I think one of the most important things schools can do in their marketing, whatever that their digital marketing, whatever that landing page is, it needs to have, whether it's the page itself or something on the side that says click here, very obvious, click here to find out what our reopening plan is, because that's what parents want first now. It's usually they're going to go to the tuition page first to see if we can even afford it. Then I'll look to see if this is a good fit for my child. Now they're saying, what is that? What does reopening look like? If it's 2 hours a day in front of a computer, 5 days a week for 6 months, that's not for me. I want to make sure that this is what we have. So I think right now, the ads need to say, hey, TruthTree Academy, open 5 days a week in person. Click here to find out more about our reopening schedule and to see if we have room. Something along those lines is really what we're as positioning our schools that are able to say that and do that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And then are you driving them? Is it okay to be driven to, like, for those schools who are like, okay, there's a lot going on, I don't think I can, pivot and create mini
Mhm.
landing pages and stuff. Are you driving them to the part of the school's website that has the information, or are you driving them to landing pages? And are you noticing if that makes a difference or not?
A little of both. So we love to do A/B testing to see what's going to move the needle. Certainly, we want people to see the information and be able to, emote them to the position. Like, yes, this sounds like such a great school, and they have exactly the type of format that we're looking for. Some schools, which I think is great if they can do it, are saying, hey, you can come in person, or you can do it fully online, or you can do a combination of both. You just need to make sure that, give us a week heads up. You get tested, so you're not coming in, with COVID-19, and go for it. So that's, I think that is the ultimate, but obviously schools can't do that. I mean, not all campuses are equipped to be able to do that, but in general, independent schools are usually better equipped to handle those things.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And as we're talking about the fall, one of the things that I've been talking with my clients about is, so let's say you're full, you've got all your, like, you're in person or your distance and you're full. Okay. So the question then I'm asking them is, what else, especially our small independent schools who before this certainly needed that revenue generation piece. What I asked them, what can you offer public school families that is like a non-traditional offering but supports what they're looking for? And I think I'm sure we're in the area, so we saw this too, but like I've seen some schools pivot and offer just like, you come and take your public school student here to our campus, and we'll have our camp counselors oversee their distance learning and stuff
Mhm.
like that, and then the rest of the day is like camp. So something like that. So is that something that you're seeing more and more schools pivot to, or is that as this thing fills up, you see the potential market to expand there?
I think smart schools, it kind of goes back to just the history of independent schools, and independent schools, private schools being in more of the driver's seat. And I mean, really, the past 15 years, it's really become a buyer's market. And to that end, it kind of doesn't match with the ethos of independent schools that, we need to be sought after. It's a very long process. We want to put a lot of bumps in the road for you to be able to attain this. And oh, by the way, then there's, at the end of the rainbow, there's a huge bill for tuition, multiplied by that 2, 3, or 4 if you have 2, 3, or 4 kids. So I think schools have really had to see themselves more of as a business, or at least the successful ones, seeing themselves as more of a business. And good businesses know when to pivot and know when to stop, producing widgets and start making tennis balls or whatever it happens to be. I'm not suggesting schools start, making tennis balls, but you have a building, essentially. You have grounds. How you use those, I've always been a big proponent of a school should be, a school's grounds, as much as possible, should be used, maybe not 24/7, but, if possible, 7 days a week, nights for night classes, things like that, whether it's kids or not. So I think schools that have already thought about different ways to bring in revenue, are really, in an advantageous spot to think about things like that. Exactly what you were saying. One of the things that we were coaching, and again, it didn't come from us. We were just kind of looking around at, like, hey, how can we help our school partners out? When all of this went down, and again, I go back to the area that we're in, Aubrey, and I forget exactly how many weeks it took for kids to start learning online, but most of the private schools in the area, it was the next week. And with that, what we were coaching up our schools to do is listen, if you're doing online work, and it's, there's not an actual seat or a book or things like that, push it out there to the public school kids, like, hey, at least for the time being, hey, parents, send your kids. They can audit, they can audit this 3rd grade class, this 5th grade class, this 9th grade class. bring them on in. Some of the schools, they charge like $150 a week to do that. Others said, just, come on in. We've got the bandwidth to do this. We may not be able to, work with you as much as our current students. And obviously making sure that current parents who are still paying the tuition understand that, that these kids come first. But I know a number of our schools that got, 1, 2, or 3 students out of that said, wow, this is great. We want to continue here, even when you go back to in person. So I think as schools kind of go into the fall, just one thing to be cautious about is if you have brought in more than a few or more than a few public school families, is that chances are that they stay with you are much smaller than the other folks. So just keep that in mind. I wouldn't put on too much rose-colored glasses that, oh my gosh, we're full and we're probably going to be full next year, because you're going to see probably larger attrition rates coming into the next cycle, just because, like, okay, the coast is clear. We were happy with public school. This is great. We like it. It's better, but it may not like provide that level of value. So I think what schools need to do this fall is just keep that in mind. But roll out the reddest carpet you've got. Customer experience, customer service needs to be at the forefront from a business perspective. But there's always that, fine line between, having teachers be customer service agents rather than teachers.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely 100% true. And I was thinking, as you were talking about this wonderful gold nugget, by the way, guys, is that really your enrollment funnel and your way to warm up, prospective families has to continue throughout the year. You can't just stop at like, we're enrolled, everything's great, it's going to be super. Because as you mentioned, that attrition is most definitely coming. We'd like to assume that people fall in love with our school and that they will stay. And certainly I do think some will. But it's remembering that this is all going to start over again. And wherever you left off in spring, or when you were, negotiating with parents and having some parents leave because of the distance learning and everything like that, is where you might end up again in this upcoming spring. So how do you look at that, and how do you build like the structures and the external audience for your funnel, so that come that time you have, hot, warm leads to go with? And I know that's a lot of what you probably do when you're building your back end. So if you want to talk a little bit more about that.
Well, this is an area where I think you and I could work together, or I shouldn't say you and TruthTree could work together really well. One of the things we always coach up schools to do, so I'll just use a K-8 model as an example. So I can enroll my child, or I can apply when my kid's 4 for kindergarten when they turn 5. You got 5 years of value that you can start pushing to those families. So just as one example, something that we coached up one of our schools to do, they were in, there were a lot of hospitals right around where the school's located. And they were a pre-K to, I think, they're pre-K to 8th grade. And so what we had them do was essentially create a brochure, a digital brochure that we pushed out to expecting moms and new moms via search and social, was top 10 things I wish I knew. Top 10 things I wish I knew about being a new mom. And it was moms from the school that essentially said, oh, I wish I had known this. They compiled it into a top 10 brochure type piece that we pushed out. Obviously, it was connected to the school's website. There was no advertising for the school at all, other than that this came from moms of this school. And so each year, for, what does a 1-year-old need, a 2-year-old, up to age 4, top 3 tips on how to get your kid to get their training wheels off and ride a 2-wheel bike. Things like that, and with the logo of the school on there. By the time they're 5, by the time their child's 5, if they're considering independent schools, they better see all the value that school's stuff has brought to them, without saying, oh, and we're the best school, or essentially advertising the school. That's the kind of value that people love to have without that hard sell. So, again, I mean, we can kind of coach them up, but, to help them implement something that we call the long funnel. So, you've got the interest at the top, but we want parents to at least have some interest at the very top. So for a lot of our K-8 or K-12 schools, what we suggest, and they usually do that, is take a small portion of your digital marketing budget and aim it at parents of newborns with just, or put them on bump.com or newborns or any sort of young parent mommy blog type stuff that will allow Google ads to be on there. No call to action. Maybe it's just like, hey, when your kid turns 5, consider us for school. Or when you're considering kindergarten, or click here to see top 10 things I wish I knew, when I was about my infant, or when I was pregnant. So it's things like that are relatively very inexpensive. I mean, it takes time for parents to get together to formulate this list or anything along those lines, but that kind of value goes such a long way in brand awareness, and it's not something schools usually do. For high schools, you should start recruiting families when their kids are in 5th grade. Not hard, you need to apply tomorrow, because you can't. But you should be providing them with brand awareness 3-4 years out.
I get so excited when you talk about this, because I'm like, yes, yes, and yes, because it is really building that know, like, and trust factor that so many of us, like in the business world, we hear that a lot, but in the independent school world, we're not necessarily thinking about that. But it's taking parents longer and longer to warm up to purchasing anything. Imagine putting like a $20,000 price tag on that purchase, and you really have to warm them up. And that's really what you said exactly, which was providing value and not necessarily expecting an immediate return. And that's what I've been working with some of my clients on, is building that, like you called it, long funnel, like whether it's a free nature class for the age group prior to your enrollment. So if you're, kindergarten, it's like that preschool or, early age group, a mommy and me class, like a free nature class or something that engages them with your staff and faculty, which is that building that trust and factor. It's getting your name out in the community. And oftentimes you can do that for free, which is awesome. And it's just building that brand awareness. And I don't see many schools doing that right now. And I think it would definitely, as we're moving forward, be so beneficial for them to start thinking outside the box. And yes, I know we have to do some of this virtual because of all the regulations in place, but it's still completely possible and doable. And I get so excited when I see schools do this, and then they wait and they wait, and then it's the return. And you're like, yes, you're seeing the return of that really long funnel and that brand awareness. You're starting to see it. And that's so key.
Yeah. I mean, it's not very quantifiable. So the example I always use is nobody goes to a farmer's market and says, well, I really hope there's a school table here because we're going to sign our kid up for that school. They don't go to Facebook saying, oh man, I really hope there's an ad for a school, a sponsored ad from a school that I see, because we'd like to enroll there. No, they go to Google and they search for those things. But if you go to the farmer's market and, you see the table, whether you take a brochure or not, you're seeing the logo, you're seeing the name of the school. Then maybe you go to, you geo-fence that place where you are. Anybody who's been in and out of there that has kids, then they start to see Facebook ads. They don't need, they're not the apply now. It might be a little bit of learn more. But it's just, I'm a big fan of just pushing out your benefits as like, here's what we're all about. Here's what our ethos is. Not, a strong call to action. Wait till their kids are, approaching age eligibility for your school, then start trying to sell them. But, it goes back to, my wife, I didn't ask her to marry me halfway through our first date. She would have probably said, no, you're crazy. Eventually she did say yes. I only needed to ask her once, but it took, a couple of years for us to realize like, hey, we're a really good match. So I think a lot of times schools, and back in the day, it was okay to do this. You had a kind of a 2-3 month window. You put some signs out, you put an ad in the paper. We have an open house, 50, 100 people would show up to the open house. and you could, pick and choose which students you wanted for your entry-level class. You really didn't need to feed any, and you didn't need to fill any other seats. It's 24/7, 365. I mean, more searching, and I know it's for different parts of our country and really globally, the admission season or the enrollment season is a little bit different. But whenever your enrollment season starts, that shouldn't be when you start marketing your events or your program. It needs to be year round. And, it's great because our school partners take full advantage of those, those down weeks and months, where advertising digitally is much less expensive because there's not the competition, but there's still the same amount of searching going on.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. People are always, they have their eye out for things and they're always sort of looking. And especially if you're building that brand awareness, when it comes time for, little Jenny to go to preschool or kindergarten and they remember you, then that's the time when they're going to take action. And I think that is so important. So
Absolutely.
as we're wrapping up here, Trevor, what would you like to leave people with? What are your thoughts? And what is that like key nugget you'd like them to take away?
That's a good question. What is a key nugget?
Did I stump you?
No. I'm trying to do it without well, you need digital marketing, obviously. And by the way, guess what we do? Because that's the zone that I'm in. And that's really the space that we're in. But I think I'd say, you have to do digital marketing now. You don't need us. Anybody can learn to do Google ads. Anybody can learn to do Facebook ads. It just takes patience. It doesn't take a big brain because Facebook and Google, they want you to advertise on their platforms. They made it as easy as can be. I think we just have some insights into how to best position yourself. But if you're not doing digital advertising, you are losing a huge part of the market. Word of mouth is always going to be number one, and it's always going to be the top value because my neighbor says it's a great school. That's way more valuable than something, in front of my face on a computer. But after that, that's just, you got to have that, but you got to have the right message. So, Aubrey, you're the one that brings them the insight into what messaging is going to work for them based on all the stuff that you do. It's really just up to us to kind of push those things out. So I'll backtrack a little bit and say it's not, you need to be doing this, but you need to be doing it with the right message. And if your program itself is not where it needs to be, focus there first, inside out.
I love that, Trevor. I couldn't have said it better. And my last thing I would say is just think beyond just tomorrow. I would say think long-term as to what you're doing. I mean, we all want to see the seats filled and everything and stuff like that, but it's thinking beyond that and really strategically thinking how you're going to position yourself for the spring, for next year, and for 2 years down the road too. I mean, we all are in this wait and see pattern, but really that long-term thinking is going to help you now and in the future. So Trevor, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you?
Well, I'm here right now. This is where I am every day. You can go to TruthTreeConsulting.com. You can Google TruthTree. We're also, on all the social media networks. I'd be happy to have a conversation with anybody who is interested in digital marketing, or frankly, if you just want to chat. I'm kind of lonely here, so give me a call.
Oh my gosh. And this has been so fun. I am so thankful, Trevor, that you just jumped in and you were like, yeah, I've got my drink. Let's go, Aubrey. I love that attitude. So this has been so fun. So everyone, thanks for tuning in. And Trevor, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.